I spent Mother's Day entirely by myself, while my children enjoyed a friend's party, despite both of them assuring me just the day before that they'd be coming for brunch. All afternoon, tears rolled down my face in the silent living room, but by night-time, they walked through the door asking me for money to cover their bills. What they didn't know was that I had already purchased a one-way ticket, and that changed everything. The table had been arranged since 11:00 a.m. fresh linens, my best dishes reserved for important moments, and the cloth napkins I had ironed carefully the night before. In the center sat a humble bouquet I'd bought with the last few dollars from my Social Security check. The chicken was roasting, the potatoes peeled and ready, the salad chilled, everything perfectly set for our Mother's Day meal. I had confirmed their plans the previous day. I called Tanisha first. She picked up in her usual hurried tone, the one she always used when she was busy doing something else while talking to me. I asked if they were still coming. "Yes, Mama, of course, we'll be there," she said. Then I called Malik. He was more blunt. "Yeah, Ma, we're coming, don't stress." He hung up almost instantly. I felt relieved. I believed, foolishly, that this year would be different, that this time they would actually remember. I settled onto the sofa and waited. At noon, still nothing. By 12:30, that familiar ache started forming in my chest. At 1:00 p.m., the chicken finished cooking. I took it out of the oven. The smell filled the empty house. I set the table and sat down, waiting. At 2:00, I dialed Tanisha. No response. I tried Malik, straight to voicemail. Again, nothing. The chicken cooled. The potatoes hardened. I walked to the window. The street was peaceful. Families strolled by laughing, hugging, carrying flowers for their mothers. I returned to the table and sat before the empty settings. Then I understood they weren't coming. Not this year, just like last year and the year before. Just like my birthday, just like Christmas. There was always something more important than me. I stayed there. I don't know how long. 3:00 passed. 4, 5, the light shifted, evening shadows stretched across the room. The silence was so deep I could hear my own heartbeat cracking. At 6:00 p.m., I put the food away. No one was going to eat it. I cleared the table, folded the linens, placed everything back in its place, and threw the wilted flowers into the trash. Flowers that looked just as tired as I felt. I sat back on the couch, and the tears began. Quiet, aching tears. Not dramatic sobs, the kind that come from the deepest part of you. The place where you bury disappointments you don't want to face. The place that knows the truth long before you admit it. I cried for all the Mother's Days I had spent alone. I cried for every promise they broke. I cried because I had given my entire life to them, and they couldn't give me a single afternoon. I'm 70 years old, 70 years of living, almost 5 decades of motherhood. And in that empty room, I finally admitted something I had been denying for years. My children didn't love me, or maybe they did, but not enough to show up, not enough to remember, not enough to care. Night covered the house, and I remained in the darkness, not even bothering to turn on the lights. Just me, the silence, and that crushing weight on my chest. I thought of calling them, of texting, of telling them the truth. But I didn't because I already knew their response. Sorry, Mama, things got complicated. Next time. And next time, a time that never arrived. At almost 10:00 p.m., I heard a car pull up. I recognized the sound immediately. Malik's engine. Voices followed, laughter, footsteps, the door unlocking. They flicked on the light and saw me sitting in the dark, my eyes swollen. My soul shattered all over again. Tanisha spoke first. "Hey, Mama. We just decided to drop by." She was wearing an expensive dress, makeup flawless, the smell of perfume and alcohol clinging to her. Malik came behind her, also dressed up, flashing that easy smile he used whenever he needed something. "Hey, Ma, how was your day?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. My throat tightened. I looked at them and finally saw the truth. While I sat crying alone in that dim room, they were out celebrating, laughing, drinking. Tanisha sat down across from me. Malik leaned against the sofa. Then she looked at her phone back at me and said, "Mama, we need to talk." Malik nodded. Yeah, Ma, we've got a situation. We need your help. Tanisha continued. It's the bills. Everything piled up. Malik's rent, my credit card. We need around $30. You're zero. I stared at them. My children. The children I broke my body to raise. The children I sacrificed everything for. The children who couldn't spare one afternoon for me, but showed up the same night asking for money. Something inside me snapped, something that would never heal. I thought of the envelope hidden in my room. Inside it, a bus ticket. One way, no return. They didn't know. They had no idea that I had already made up my mind. That this was the last time they would see me like this. Quiet, obedient, always available. As they kept talking about their debts, their emergencies, their needs, I thought only of my escape. My name is Vivian Sterling. I am 70 years old, and I already bought my one-way ticket. It hadn't always been like this. There was a time when my children ran into my arms after school, a time when Tanisha shrieked, "Mama," and clung to my neck, a time when Malik talked non-stop about everything he learned that day, a time when I mattered. We were poor, but we were happy, or I believed we were. We lived in a small house on the edge of Cloverdale, Georgia. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a kitchen barely big enough for 4. Marcus, my husband, worked construction. I cleaned houses. We survived on pennies, but managed. Tanisha was 6, Malik 4. They ran around barefoot, playing with rocks and sticks, because toys were a luxury we couldn't afford. But they didn't care. They were kids, innocent, unaware of how little we had. Every night I bathed them in our old tub, washed their hair, clipped their nails, dressed them in clothes I scrubbed by hand. I tucked them into bed and told stories until sleep claimed them. They were my world. Marcus was a good man, quiet, hard-working. He loved me in his own way. After long days, he'd sit at the table, eat what I made, look at me and say, "Thank you, Vivian." That was enough. I needed nothing else. But everything changed when Marcus died. A construction accident, a falling beam. They said it was quick, as if that made the pain easier to swallow. He was 42, I was 38. Tanisha was 12, Malik 10. Suddenly, I was alone with 2 children. No savings, no steady work, nothing beyond my will to survive. The survivor benefits, $500 a month, barely enough for groceries, so I worked. Harder than ever. 3 houses in the morning. Laundry in the afternoon, ironing at night. 4 hours of sleep, maybe. My hands cracked, my back bent, my knees weakened, but my children ate. They went to school. They had clean clothes and shoes. I gave them everything. Tanisha, the eldest, became responsible beyond her years. Cooking, helping Malik, taking on duties she shouldn't have had. I felt guilty for stealing her childhood. Malik changed too. He stopped drawing, stopped dreaming. He drifted toward other boys, came home late, answered me with one-word replies. He became distant, a stranger, and that is how everything slowly began to fall apart. I kept pushing forward, working myself to the edge, because that's what mothers do. I kept believing that one day they'd understand, that one day they'd look at me and say, "Mama, thank you for everything you sacrificed." When Tanisha turned 18 and got a job at a boutique downtown, I honestly thought things would get easier. I imagined she'd help out, maybe lift a little of the burden off my shoulders. But instead, she saved every dollar for herself. New outfits, expensive shoes, makeup, perfume, and endless nights out with friends. And when I asked her to contribute even a small amount toward the house, she looked at me like I'd asked for something outrageous, something unforgivable. Malik barely finished high school. He refused college. He claimed school wasn't for him, that he'd work, make money, and didn't need more education. I didn't argue. I was too exhausted to fight anymore. He eventually found a job at a mechanic shop. The pay was small, but it was honest work. I hoped he'd stay and help me keep things afloat, but 6 months later, he told me he was moving out. He'd found a place with friends, he needed space. He said he was a man now and couldn't live with me forever. I stood there quietly, never telling him how deeply it hurt, never admitting how terrified I was of being alone. I helped him pack. I handed him money for his first month's rent, money I didn't really have, money pulled from the little savings I kept for emergencies. And I watched him walk out the door without even a backward glance. Tanisha left 2 years after that. She met a man, fell in love, and got married. I was invited to the wedding, but it was more of a courtesy invite, the kind you send because you have to. I went anyway. I sat alone in a corner while everyone else laughed, danced, and celebrated. No one asked who I was. No one spoke to me. I was just there, the mother of the bride, invisible and unnecessary. Her marriage lasted 3 years. When it ended, she came back home in tears, telling me the man had cheated, mistreated her, and left her with nothing. I opened my door without hesitation. She stayed 6 months, rebuilt herself, found someone new, and left again. This time without even a goodbye. Malik never settled down. He had a stream of girlfriends, short, lived, glamorous, and all the same. He only brought them around when he wanted to look like a good son. "This is my mama," he'd say with that fake sweetness. Bless her heart, she lives all alone. The girls would look at me the same way people look at stray dogs. Pitying, condescending, uncomfortable. Years kept slipping by. My body began breaking down. My back screamed, my knees weakened. My hands shook from decades of scrubbing floors and washing clothes. But I kept working because they still came around. Only when they needed money. $2, $100 here, $3, $100 there, $5, $100 for something urgent. They always had a story, always a crisis. And I always gave in, even when it meant skipping my medication, lowering the heat in winter, or eating soup for a week. They were my children, I loved them. I kept telling myself that one day they'd change. One day they'd understand. One day they'd finally see me, but that day never came. They just kept taking, kept calling, kept draining me, until that Mother's Day, until I sat in that silent living room, waiting for them again. Until they walked through the door smelling of drinks and perfume, smiling like they had just come from paradise, and then they asked me for $3, zero, as casually as asking for a glass of water. That was the moment something inside me snapped. I told them I didn't have the money. Tanisha scowled, her face twisting in disbelief. "Really, Mama, right now when we actually need you?" Malik stepped in, all serious and annoyed. "Ma, this isn't a joke. These are actual bills. We're gonna get in trouble if we don't pay." He waited for me to cave, because I always did, but this time I didn't. I held my ground. I told them my check barely covered my basic needs, that I had nothing extra, that I couldn't help them anymore. Tanisha stood up furious. "Wow, unbelievable. When we finally need you, you can't do anything." Malik muttered something under his breath, thanked me in the most insincere tone imaginable, and they both walked out without a backward glance. No happy Mother's Day, no concern, no love. I sat there alone again, surrounded by cold food, folded linens, and a silence that felt like death itself. I stayed awake the whole night replaying everything. The sacrifices, the long years, the nights I cried quietly, the days I worked sick, the dreams I gave up for them. And the more I thought, the more something inside me shifted. By morning, I'd made a decision. I needed answers, real answers, because something didn't add up. Both of them had full-time jobs. Both of them earned more than me. So why were they constantly broke? Why were they always begging? I opened my phone, something I almost never did, and logged into social media. Tanisha had shown me how once. That was all I needed. Her page was a gallery of luxury. Restaurants, beaches, fancy outfits, cocktails, weekend trips. Picture after picture of a life she claimed she couldn't afford. I scrolled through hundreds of images of her smiling, laughing, drinking, even at the party she went to instead of coming to see me. The caption read "Perfect day with my favorites." A perfect day while I was crying alone. Malik's profile was no different. Nights out, designer clothes, new motorcycle, concerts, bars, events, a lifestyle nowhere close to someone drowning in bills. Then I saw a screenshot Tanisha had posted carelessly. A group chat called the Sterling Kids. Only Tanisha and Malik were in it. Malik had typed, "Did you ask the old woman yet?" Tanisha replied, "Not yet, but I know what to say. I'll tell her it's urgent. You know how she is. She always falls for it." Malik answered, "Lol, yeah, poor thing. But hey, that's what she had us for, right? We'll take care of her when she's old. For now she can keep funding us, funding them." The old woman, my vision blurred, my fingers trembled, my heart felt like it cracked in two. I closed the phone and stumbled to the bathroom. I looked in the mirror and saw a tired old woman with silver hair, weary eyes, and hands twisted by years of labor. A woman who had given everything to children who saw her as a joke, a wallet, an obligation. I went back to my room, opened a box of old documents, bills, and receipts, and started adding up the money I'd given them over the last 5 years. $20,000, $20,000 that they spent on parties and luxuries while telling me they were struggling. They lied, they used me, and I let them. Sitting on the edge of my bed, I finally understood if I didn't change my life. No one else ever would. I had 2 choices: keep living like this until I died alone, or do something I had never done before, something that scared me, but would save me. Good, bye for now. I ended the call before he had the chance to answer. My hand lowered slowly, still holding the phone. Inside me there was nothing. No pain, no fear. Just a calm, echoing emptiness, the kind that lingers in a room freshly cleaned. Titus began clapping, slow and deliberate. "Bravo," he said, without a hint of sarcasm. "That was more powerful than selling the house. Turning away your own son while he's begging. That takes nerves of steel. It takes love," I corrected, staring at the black screen of my phone. "Real love isn't letting them cling to you forever. Sometimes you have to step aside and let them stand on their own legs. If I hand him support now, he'll never learn to walk." "Wise," Titus agreed. "Well, MS. Yulia, the curtain drops, the villains paid their price, the heroes banished for character development, and the 2 of us, well, what about us? For the first time that entire day, I felt a genuine, light-hearted smile spread across my face. "We celebrate," I answered. "Desmond, bring the cognac, the one you gifted me 5 years ago. We never opened it." Desmond lit up like a child. "The 20-year Armenian brandy. It's in the car. I'll grab it now." While he hurried off, I stepped onto the terrace. Night had claimed everything. The sky glittered with sharp, bright stars. The ocean below growled in the dark. Somewhere out there on the highway, my almost ex-daughter-in-law was probably hitchhiking, cursing the moment she thought I was a fragile old lady. Somewhere else my son, finally, was making his first adult decisions. And I stood there on my own land, feeling the warmth of the sun, baked tiles through my soles, breathing in the perfume of night flowers. I was alone and free, but the story wasn't completely finished. There was one small detail I hadn't shared with Titus. When I sent the deed scan to the Vances, I slipped another file into the email, Karis's bank statement, the same one I managed to obtain through old banking connections when my suspicions began a week ago. I had known about the money for a while. I was simply waiting, giving them a chance. Now, when Thaddeus Vance, sitting at the police station, finally opens that archive using the password I'm about to send, he won't just see numbers, he'll see the recipients. And one of those names will shake him. A lover, of course not. The word lover wasn't anywhere on the statement, but he would see transfers of $2,000 every week to a certain fitness trainer with the note supplements. And the name was not random. I typed a message to Thaddeus, password for archive, 1988, your daughter's birth year, check the last pages. Payments to someone named T. Main Washington. Thought you'd want to know. Send. Now the finale was truly unavoidable. I returned to the living room. Desmond was already pouring amber liquid into the snifters. To a new life, declared Titus. To freedom, I replied, tapping my glass against his. Then my phone buzzed. It wasn't Sterling. It wasn't Thaddeus. It was a travel app. Prices for flights to Rome have dropped. Still interested. Rome. My lifelong dream. The city I studied in architecture books, but never visited because someone always needed rescuing, guiding, supporting. I looked at my guests. Gentlemen, I said, do you know what season it is right now? Artichoke season. Titus burst into laughter. Ms. Eulalia, you never stop surprising me. Are you really going? I am, I answered firmly. Tomorrow, what I didn't know was that the next morning would bring me one last unexpected turn. Something that would delay my trip by a couple of hours, because someone I never imagined seeing again would appear at my gate. Morning greeted me not with birdsong, but with persistent knocking. I set down my coffee on the terrace. My suitcase was packed, my ticket booked for the evening, taxi scheduled, no visitors expected. I walked to the gate, adjusting my sunglasses. On the other side of the wrought iron stood not Sterling, not Karras, not the police, a courier with a giant basket of white roses, and leaning casually on an SUV behind him, Titus. I opened the gate. Mr. Banks, did you forget your jacket? No, Ms. Aaliyah. He smiled and removed his glasses. I didn't come for anything I left. I came with an offer. He gestured to the courier, who set the flowers inside the yard. A white envelope sat nestled among the roses. This is for you, Titus said. Last night made something clear to me. A woman with your strength and your appetite for life is rare, and what's in the envelope? Another sale contract. No, he stepped closer, a management contract. Since you're leaving for Italy, the house will be empty. I've fallen in love with this place and your garden, so here's the deal. I want to rent Indigo Point for the entire summer for more than fair money. With one condition, every now and then, let me send you photos of the roses so you can tell me how to keep them alive. I'm hopeless with plants, and it would be a crime to let these die. I laughed, a real laugh, the kind I hadn't felt in years. You know how to make difficult to refuse offers, Mr. Banks, and he leaned in. I can keep watch over the house, make sure no unwanted relatives return. My security team is convincing it was perfect. The house would be cared for, the garden safe. I'd earn travel money and peace. I accept, I said, shaking his hand. An hour later, I sat in the taxi. Titus remained at the villa, temporary guardian of my roses and protector against old ghosts. I watched my home and the sea shrink in the rear window. My phone pinged. Sterling. Mom, I filed the report. They picked up Karras on the highway for disorderly behavior, and then the debt stuff surfaced. It's bad. Her father is furious. I rented a room looking for a job. Please forgive me. I'll handle it. I smiled and typed, I believe in you. Handle it. See you in a month. I'll bring you an Italian tie. Love you. Then I blocked Karras's number forever. I leaned back, breathing in the leather scent of the car. The road stretched ahead. Rome waited. A life that finally belonged to me. I closed my eyes and, after years of noise, heard the quiet music of my own spirit. The silence was magnificent. Did you enjoy the story? From which city are you listening? Let me know in the comments. If you liked it, you can support me with a super thanks, so I can continue creating more stories. I can't wait to read your thoughts. On your screen are 2 more life stories I highly recommend. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next chapter. With love and respect. I walked out of that office feeling lighter than I had in years. No, decades. It felt as if someone had finally lifted a boulder off my back. A boulder made of guilt I never should have carried in the first place. That night, I sat in front of my computer with a calm I hadn't felt in ages. Without hesitation, I bought a ticket, a single one-way bus ticket, destination Coastal Haven, A town I'd never visited, didn't know a soul in, but something deep inside told me it would soon become my refuge. My beginning, the departure date was set for 2 months later. Enough time to put my life in order, enough time to disappear quietly, without drama, without tears, without begging anyone for understanding. I placed the ticket inside the drawer of my nightstand, and every night before bed I opened that drawer, touched the paper, and reminded myself, in 60 days, I leave, in 60 days, I breathe again, but before walking away from the life that had drained me, I needed closure. Not revenge, not cruelty, dignity. I needed them to know the truth of what they had done. I needed them to see the mother they had broken, the woman they had ridiculed, the heart they had taken advantage of. When I told Ellie my plan, she looked at me with those knowing eyes of hers. "Are you certain?" she asked softly. "Yes. Will you regret it?" "The only thing I regret," I answered, "is how long it took me to do this." Together we planned my final act. A dinner, my last supper with Tanisha and Malik. I would invite them, tell them it was important. They would come. Of course they would. They always came whenever they thought they might gain something. But this time, the only thing being taken back was my life. We set the date, Saturday, 3 weeks away. I called Tanisha first. She answered on the 4th ring. "Hello, Mama. What's going on?" Distracted, detached, her usual tone. I told her I was hosting a family dinner, something important, something I needed to share with them. Silence. Then, "Is it something bad? Are you sick?" Her fake concern scraped at my nerves. "No." I replied, "I'm not sick, but I want you here." She agreed. Malik's call was almost identical. Same words, same question, same half-hearted tone. But he said he would come. I circled the date on the calendar, 3 weeks, 21 days, 504 hours. And I began preparing. Every day I rehearsed what I would say. I stood in front of the mirror practicing my tone, making sure my voice wouldn't shake. I printed every screenshot, the mocking messages, the sarcastic comments, the photos of their lavish outings taken the same week they begged me for money. I organized receipts for every dollar I had ever given them. 5 years, $20,000. Avery drafted the legal documents, a declaration that I was ending all financial support, a copy of the revised will, changes to my accounts, everything official. I also prepared 3 envelopes, one for Tanisha, one for Malik, one for Ellie. Ellie's contained a heartfelt letter and $500, what she had once lent me, plus a small gift for standing by me when no one else did. Tanisha's envelope held the key to a safety deposit box filled with items from her father. Photos, keepsakes, things I hoped she'd value more than money. Malik's envelope held the same, relics of a childhood he barely seemed to remember. Because in Coastal Haven, I didn't want to carry any ghosts. As the days crept by, doubt sometimes tried to settle in my mind. Was I being too harsh, too dramatic, too cold? Then I remembered Mother's Day. I remembered the names they called me. I remembered the lies, and the doubt vanished. A week before the dinner, Malik called. He needed $500 to fix his car. I told him I didn't have it, that we would talk after the dinner. He grew angry, rushed, demanding. I repeated myself. He hung up annoyed. 2 days later, a photo appeared on his social media. The car sparkling brand new, and the girl sitting beside him. The lies were no longer even creative. They were lazy. Finally the day arrived. I woke early and cleaned the whole house, not for them, for me, for the dignity of the moment. I cooked all their childhood favorites, roast chicken, scalloped potatoes, fresh salad, homemade bread, chocolate dessert. Not as a gift, as a reminder. I set the table with my finest china, silverware, crystal glasses, embroidered linens. The table looked beautiful, worthy of a final scene. By 6 o'clock, everything was ready. I bathed, dressed in my best black dress, styled my hair, applied makeup. When I looked in the mirror, I saw a woman transformed, a woman who finally recognized her worth. They arrived at 7, together. Laughing, I watched from the window, observing them the way someone studies strangers. Tanisha kissed my cheek, empty, rushed. Malik hugged me, quick, cold. They sat, commented on the house, the food, the wine. We made meaningless small talk. I answered politely, but inside I was counting down. After half an hour, I invited them to the table. They admired the food. Malik asked if it was a special occasion. Yes, I said, but we'll talk after eating. They ate greedily, chatting mostly with each other. I watched them closely, searching for even a flicker of the children they had once been. But all I saw were two adults filled with entitlement, expecting once again to walk away with something. When dinner was over, I gathered the plates. Tanisha offered to help, but I told her to sit. This wasn't a night for pretend gestures. In the kitchen, I inhaled deeply. The moment had come. I returned with a tray. The envelopes, the documents, the evidence. Their eyes lit up, expecting gifts. I placed the tray on the table and sat down. I looked at each of them, and then I spoke. I invited you here because I'm done staying silent. I'm done pretending. I know everything. The lies, the messages, the names you call me, the way you mock me while taking my last dime. Tanisha's smile vanished. Malik froze. I continued. You've lied for years, but tonight you will listen. I placed the screenshots on the table, their own words, printed in black and white. Tanisha went pale. Malik's mouth fell open. They tried to explain, to interrupt, to twist the truth. I raised my hand. No, not anymore. Those conversations were from 2 weeks ago, and every word was exactly how you feel. Then I spread the receipts across the table. 5 years, $20, 0, euro 0. That, I said calmly, is what I gave you. Money you claimed was for emergencies, for survival, for needs. I looked at them both, and every bit of it was a lie. Then I pulled out the photos, the screenshots from their own social media. Tanisha eating at fancy restaurants, Malik posing with a shiny new car, the two of them traveling, dressed in expensive brands, living comfortably, clearly spending freely while claiming they had no money, while demanding help from me when they were never struggling at all. This is what you did with the money I gave you. I told them, while I lived off cheap rice and beans to save a few dollars, while I skipped buying my medication so you could have more, while I bent myself in half so your lives could stay smooth. You used my sacrifices for your luxuries, for things you didn't even need. Tanisha opened her mouth. Mama, let me explain. There's nothing to explain. I cut in. The numbers tell the truth. The photos tell the truth. Your own messages tell the truth. The only ones lying here are the two of you, and you've been doing it for years. Malik pushed back his chair and stood. This is insane, Mama. You're blowing everything out of proportion. You're judging us over private conversations. Everybody says stupid things in front of their friends. I watched him rise. I didn't budge. I wasn't afraid. Sit down, Malik. I'm not done. Something in my voice stopped him. He sat. Tanisha's eyes filled with tears, fake ones, tears of being exposed, not tears of real regret. I knew the difference. I told them about Mother's Day. I told them every detail, how I checked with them the night before, and they promised they'd come. How I cooked, cleaned, waited. How the house stayed painfully silent while I sat alone, crying in that empty room, while they were out partying, laughing, celebrating with people who mattered more to them than I ever did. Tanisha sobbed harder. Mama, I'm sorry. It was a mistake. We should have come. A mistake, I repeated. A mistake is forgetting milk. A mistake is showing up late. What you did wasn't a mistake. It was a decision. You chose a party over your mother. You chose fun over responsibility. And then you had the audacity to show up that same night and ask me for money. Malik kept his head lowered. He couldn't look at me. He knew I was right. He knew he had nothing to say in his defense. I told them that the night they begged me for $3, 0, 0, 0 was the moment something broke inside me, the moment I realized nothing I did would ever be enough for them. That I meant nothing beyond the money I provided. I took out Avery's paperwork, the The new will, the bank changes. This, I said, is why I called you here tonight. This is the announcement. I held up the documents, explained every change, explained that nothing would automatically go to them anymore, that I had taken charge of my money, my belongings, my life. Tanisha stopped crying instantly. Her eyes widened. What does that mean, Mama? It means I finally took control, I said. It means you can't manipulate me again. You can't deceive me again. It means you won't see another cent from me, ever. It's over. Malik shot to his feet. You're out of your mind. You can't do this. We're your children. We have rights. I stared at him with ice in my eyes. You have a right to nothing. I earned every single dollar I have. I worked myself to exhaustion to give you both everything, and you repaid me with lies and disrespect. Yes, I can do this, and I already have. I showed them the bank documents, told them about the new account, told them most of my money was already there, told them they couldn't touch it, couldn't access it, would never have a say in what I do with it. Tanisha stood, her face twisting, sadness turning into fury. So this is Ellie's fault, isn't it? That snake filled your head with nonsense. She manipulated you. I looked at her with pure disappointment. Ellie is the only person who has treated me with respect in years, the only one who listens, the only one who sees me as a human being, not a walking ATM. So do not speak her name with disrespect. Malik paced the room. This can't be real. This isn't happening. We've always loved you, Mama. We've always been there for you. I let out a hollow laugh. There for me? Really, Malik? Where were you on Mother's Day, on my birthday, when I was sick last year, when I needed someone? You were nowhere. The only time you two show up is when you want something. The rest of the time I don't exist. I handed them envelopes with their names. These are for you. Open them or don't. I don't care anymore. Tanisha opened hers, hands shaking. Inside were keys, along with a note explaining they belonged to a safe deposit box holding items that belonged to her father. Nothing else, she whispered. That's all, that's all. I replied. Malik didn't touch his envelope. He left it on the table. Silence filled the room, thick, heavy, loaded with years of hurt and truths too long ignored. Tanisha made one final attempt. Mama, please, we can fix this. We can change. We'll be better. Just, please give us another chance. I shook my head slowly. You already had countless chances. Every lonely Mother's Day was a chance. Every dollar I gave you was a chance. Every time I forgave you was a chance. No more chances remain. Malik walked to me and grabbed my shoulders. Mama, you're upset. I get it, but don't do something you'll regret. We're your family. We're all you have. I gently removed his hands. That's exactly the problem, Malik. You're all I have, and that's heartbreaking. Because what I have are two children who don't love me, who use me, who only remember me when they need help. I told them to leave. Dinner was done. My words were said. There was nothing left to discuss. Tanisha cried again. Maybe these tears were real, maybe not. I didn't care anymore. Malik stared at me like I was a stranger. Maybe he was right. Maybe he never really knew me. Maybe he never wanted to know me to him. I was just Mama, the fixer, the giver, the safety net. Never Vivian, never a person. I walked to the door, opened it, and waited. Go, I said. This time my voice didn't shake. This time there was no guilt, only peace. A strange, powerful peace. The peace of finally telling the truth. The peace of choosing myself over being used. The peace of dignity. Tanisha rushed out first, still crying. Malik followed. At the doorway he paused. This isn't over, Mama. We'll talk when you calm down. There will be no more conversations, I answered. This is final. Go. He left. I watched their car. The doors slamming, Malik hitting the steering wheel, Tanisha wiping her face. I watched the headlights fade down the street. When the car disappeared, I closed the door and stood alone in the quiet. I expected sadness, regret, fear. Instead, I felt relief, deep, overwhelming relief, like removing a shoe that's been cutting into your foot all day, like laying down a burden so heavy you forgot how life felt without it. I walked back to the dining room, the dishes, the papers, the envelope. Everything looked like the physical mess their truth had left behind. I began cleaning. With each plate I washed, each item I put away, I felt like I was putting away the old version of myself, the Vivian who tolerated, who stayed silent, who accepted scraps. She was staying behind, because in 2 months the new Vivian would get on a bus and never return. The days after that dinner were quiet, almost unnaturally so. I thought maybe they'd call, try to make amends, try to fix something, but nothing. A week passed, then another, no texts, no calls, no apology. It was as though I had died to them. It hurt. I won't pretend it didn't. But then I realized their silence was confirmation, proof that walking away was the right choice. Ellie visited every day. She helped me pack, box by box. Clothes, a few books, old photos, not much. Just the essentials, because where I was heading, I didn't need memories. I just needed space to begin again. I hired a real estate lawyer. I listed the house, the place I lived for 42 years, the place I raised my children, the place my husband passed away, a home full of memories, some sweet, many painful. It was time to let it go. The lawyer assured me he could get a good offer, $100,000. It was an old house in a decent neighborhood. There were interested buyers, and the lawyer said we could close the sale in a month. Perfect timing. I didn't tell Tanisha or Malik. I owed them no explanation. This house was mine, paid for with my labor, Marcus' pension money, and decades of my own savings. They had no claim while I was alive. I began giving things away, old furniture, appliances, items I no longer needed. I gave them to neighbors who had shown me kindness over the years, who greeted me warmly, who treated me with more respect than my own children. Miss Eva Carter from the corner took the dining room table, the same table where I had held that dinner with Tanisha and Malik. She hugged me, thanked me 1,000 times, promising to care for it. Mr. George Thomas from the building next door took the sofa. I gave the television to the lady who sold flowers on the corner. Each item that left the house made me feel lighter, as though I were shedding the past, loosening moorings, preparing to float. 3 weeks after the dinner, there was a knock at the door. Tanisha stood there alone, wearing a look of consequence as if she had rehearsed her lines. I let her in, curious rather than forgiving. She looked around, noticing the missing items. The sofa, I told her, was given away to someone who would appreciate it. The table, the memories, the items tied to our past, none of it belonged to her. She spoke of regrets, of wanting a second chance, of realizing she had acted wrongly. I listened. Her words were empty, an echo of concern rooted in inheritance rather than love. She mentioned Malik, hesitant, resistant, unwilling to face the truth. The truth had already spoken in my absence, in my preparation, in my departure plans. I told her the house was sold, the bus ticket purchased, the new life ready. Coastal haven awaited, a place where Vivian Sterling could finally be Vivian, free from the weight of children who had never truly needed her. She went pale. Her concern was no longer about me, but about what she would lose. I remained unmoved. She cried, she pleaded, she tried to hug me. I stepped back. No more empty words, no more fake embraces. No more sacrifices that went unnoticed. This was final. The door closed behind her, and with it, the remnants of an old life. Ellie arrived that evening, bringing dinner and comfort. I told her about Tanisha's visit. She listened without judgment, without interruption, and then said, "I'm proud of you, Vivian, so proud." Those words sank deep, filling spaces long hollowed by indifference. I handed her the envelope of repayment and gratitude. She tried to refuse, but I insisted. She had been more family than my children had been in decades. She accepted, and we embraced in a hug that carried years of mutual understanding and liberation. The following days were a whirlwind. The house sale closed in 2 weeks. Papers, transfers, and legal documents were signed. The $100,000 from the sale went straight to my secret account. I withdrew only what I needed, leaving the rest safeguarded for my new life. No one would have access, no one could interfere. A week before departure, Malik sent a text pleading for reconsideration, for family, for connection. I deleted it without a second thought. I blocked their numbers. Their interference no longer mattered. Moving day arrived. Boxes, few and essential, were shipped ahead to a small hotel in Coastal Haven. Clothes, books, photographs. The items I would carry were only those necessary to start anew. The house, once filled with decades of memory, stood empty. I walked through the rooms one last time, the bedroom I shared with Marcus, the rooms where my children grew up, the kitchen where I spent countless hours feeding a family that never truly appreciated me, the living room where I had cried on that decisive Mother's Day. I said goodbye not with nostalgia, but with acceptance. This house contained my past. My future required only a 70-year-old woman, a bus ticket, and a small suitcase. I closed the door for the last time, handed the keys to the lawyer, signed the final paper, and watched 42 years of history become someone else's story. I did not cry. Relief, clarity, and certainty filled me instead. The life ahead belonged entirely to me. I didn't look back. I simply kept walking. Ellie brought me to her place for my final night in town. I slept on her sofa, and we stayed up talking about life, about dreams, about the ocean I was finally going to see. She asked me to visit whenever I could. I told her I would, and this time it was a promise I truly meant. Morning arrived with a clear and gentle sky, as if the world itself understood that I needed a peaceful beginning for the life ahead of me. I woke early. Ellie was already up with a pot of coffee ready. We shared breakfast together without words, a silence so easy and warm that only real friendship can create. My bus was scheduled to leave at 10. Ellie drove me to the station. I carried my one small suitcase, just enough clothes, documents, and a few cherished old photos. Not of my children, I left those behind. Only pictures of Marcus, my parents, and memories worth holding on to traveled with me. We arrived an hour early. We sat on a bench, our hands intertwined like sisters parting ways. Ellie's eyes glistened. "Vivian," she whispered, "you're going to be okay. You're finally going to find the peace you deserve." "I know," I answered. And for the first time in years, I truly believed the words leaving my mouth. Then something unexpected happened. A figure caught my eye, Tanisha, walking toward me with urgency. Malik followed closely behind her. My heart tightened. How had they found me? How did they know? They reached us in seconds. Tanisha was out of breath. "Mama, thank God we found you." Malik glanced at my suitcase, the ticket in my hand, and the truth hit him all at once. Ellie rose immediately, stepping between us as though shielding me. "What are you doing here?" she demanded. Tanisha didn't even look at her. "Mama, you can't leave like this. Please, we need to talk." Malik nodded. "This is crazy. You're our mother. You can't just disappear." I looked at them with a calm I didn't expect to feel. "How did you know I would be here?" Tanisha hesitated before admitting. "I called Ellie. I begged her. I told her we just needed to say goodbye." I turned to Ellie. She shook her head, guilty. "I'm sorry, Vivian." She was crying. "She said it was only to say farewell. I thought maybe it would give you peace." I wasn't angry. Ellie's heart was too kind to blame. "It's okay." I told her softly. "It's all right." I stood and faced my children. "You have 5 minutes." I said, "Tell me what you came to say." Malik spoke first. "Mama, you sold the house, our house, the home we grew up in, without telling us, without asking. How could you do that?" I met his eyes. "That house was mine, Malik, not yours, not Tanisha's. Mine. I paid for it. I lived in it. I had every right to decide its future. You had no claim to it." Tanisha's voice cracked. "But it was our inheritance. What you were supposed to leave us, that was our future. Your inheritance." I repeated, "Your future. Isn't it interesting that the only time you think of me is when it involves what you will gain after I'm gone? Never about what you could give while I'm still alive." "That's not true," Malik insisted. "You matter to us." A bitter laugh left my throat. "If I mattered, you wouldn't be here arguing about the house. You'd be asking why I'm leaving. You'd be asking if I'm okay. But no, you're here for the money, as always." Tanisha broke down again. "Mama, please don't leave hating us. Don't leave like this. We can change. I swear we can. Let me be the daughter you deserve. Just give me time." I looked at her steadily. "You had 50 years, Tanisha. 50 years. I don't have any time left to waste. I reached into my purse and pulled out 2 envelopes, the final ones I had prepared. I handed one to each of them. This is the last thing you'll ever receive from me. Open it when you leave, not now. Tanisha's hands trembled as she took hers. Malik stuffed his into his pocket. What's in them? He asked. A letter. I said, everything I never said, everything I carried alone, the truth you needed to hear long ago, and something else you both needed to know. Tanisha ignored my instruction and opened her envelope. She read the letter, her face drained of color. Malik, you have to read this. She whispered. He pulled out his own letter and read. Shock washed over both their faces. In those letters I told them every sacrifice, every meal I skipped, every bill I paid, every time I worked through sickness so they could have comforts. I listed dates, amounts, moments they forgot or never even noticed. I told them exactly how much money I received from the house $100,000, and made it clear that they would not touch a cent while I was alive. I explained that I had rewritten my will 50% for Ellie, for being the only one who treated me with humanity, 25% for a charity that helps abandoned elderly women, and the remaining 25% split between the 2 of them, if they were still around to receive it. This can't be legal, Malik protested. There must be some law that protects children, that guarantees inheritance. I looked at him with more sorrow than anger. It's perfectly legal, Malik. Avery ensured everything was done correctly. It is my right to choose what happens to my life and my money. Tanisha sobbed. Mama, you don't have to leave. Stay near us. We can take care of you. We can do better. Just please don't go. I already bought the ticket. I said, the sale is final. My goodbyes are done. There's no turning back. The announcement echoed across the station. Departure to Coastal Haven. Gate 6, final boarding. It was my moment. I picked up my suitcase. Ellie hugged me tightly. Take care. She whispered, call me when you arrive, and please, be happy. You deserve it. I promised her. I turned to walk away when Tanisha grabbed my arm. Mama, wait. Just tell me one thing. Do you hate us? I paused, looked her straight in the eyes. I don't hate you. I said softly, but I don't love you enough to keep destroying myself for you. That's the truth. Malik took a step closer. Then, what are we to you now? Nothing, I said. The word cut sharper than I intended, but it was the truth. I was nothing to you except a wallet, a duty, an obligation. Now I choose not to be anything at all. I walked toward the gate. They followed for a few steps, then stopped. Finally realizing there was nothing left to say, nothing left to save, I boarded the bus, took my window seat, and looked outside. Ellie waved, smiling through her tears. Behind her, Tanisha and Malik stood frozen, stunned, watching their mother leave for real this time. The engine rumbled. The bus rolled forward. Ellie grew smaller. My children remained motionless, absorbing the reality that their mother, along with the money they depended on, was gone forever. The city faded behind me as we merged onto the highway. Buildings, streets, familiar corners, all slipping into the distance. With each passing mile, my breath grew easier, my heartbeat steadier, my chest lighter. I leaned back, closed my eyes, and thought about all I had left behind. The house, the memories, the children, the life that drained me, and I thought about everything I had gained. Freedom, dignity, a chance at living for myself. And the ocean waiting for me ahead. I opened my eyes and gazed out the window. The landscape had changed. Buildings were gone. Fields stretched, trees swayed, and mountains rose in the distance. Beauty I had never paused to notice, too busy, too tired, too consumed with the needs of others. An older woman sat across the aisle, her eyes warm as she smiled at me. Traveling alone? She asked. I nodded. Yes, I'm traveling alone to begin a new life. Her smile widened. How brave. At our age, there are still those who dare to start over. I admire you for that. Her words settled deep in me. I realized she was right. Leaving everything I knew to find something better required courage, and I had it, The bus rolled on, hours passed, stops came and went. People boarded, people departed. I stayed in my seat, watching the world unfold, feeling every mile as liberation, one step closer to the woman I was always meant to be. I thought briefly of Tanisha and Malik. Would they ever understand? Would they regret their choices? Then I stopped. It was no longer my burden, no longer my responsibility. They were adults, and I had made my own decision. I opened a new notebook I had bought. The first page read, "My name is Vivian Sterling. I am 70 years old, and today I begin to live for myself." The bus reached Coastal Haven at dawn. I had traveled all night, barely sleeping, not from discomfort, but from anticipation. Hope, real hope, filled me, a feeling I hadn't known in decades. I stepped off the bus, suitcase in hand. The air smelled different. Alt-C and something entirely new. The terminal was small, clean, and quiet, a stark contrast to the chaos I had left behind. I hailed a cab and gave the address of a simple hotel I had booked online with Ellie's help. The streets passed slowly, low houses painted in soft colors, locals strolling at ease, life unhurried, stress absent. The boardwalk came into view, and there it was, the ocean, vast and shimmering under the sun. I was breathless, 70 years of life, and I had never seen the ocean. Now it was real. The hotel was small but welcoming. Brenda Hayes, the owner, greeted me with warmth and a ready smile. "Welcome to Coastal Haven," she said. "You're going to be very happy here." I believed her immediately. My room faced the ocean. I opened the window, letting in the breeze, fresh, salty, full of possibilities. I sat on the bed, staring at the horizon, and I cried, not from sadness, but relief, gratitude, and wonder. I had arrived. I had dared to arrive. After unpacking, showering, and changing, I went down for breakfast. Brenda served fresh bread and coffee. We talked. I shared that I was starting over, seeking a permanent place to live. She told me of several small homes with ocean views, affordable and perfect for someone like me. After breakfast, I walked along the boardwalk, unhurried. I noticed everything: the sea, the gulls, the fishermen, the locals. Life moved differently here, calmly, peacefully, far from the chaos I had known. I found a bench, faced the ocean, and closed my eyes. The waves whispered the most beautiful sound I had ever heard, a sound that filled me with peace, affirming I had made the right choice, that I deserved this. A woman joined me on the bench. Older than me, perhaps in her 80s, she wore a wide hat and dark glasses. "Good morning," she said. "Good morning," I replied. "Beautiful day," she remarked. "Every day is beautiful here," I said. Her name was Gloria Jenkins. She had lived in Coastal Haven for 20 years. She too had come seeking escape, from pain, from people, from a life she could no longer bear. And she said it had been the best decision she had ever made. I felt an immediate kinship. We talked for hours. She told me about the town, the people, the calm, simple life. She described a community of older women seeking peace, women who had started over, women like us. She invited me to their Tuesday group, a reading group, a knitting group, a conversation and friendship circle. I accepted without hesitation. I wanted to meet people, to make friends, to live for myself. In the following days, Brenda helped me find my perfect home. A small, single-story house with 2 bedrooms, a kitchen, a living room, a small front yard, and a back deck overlooking the ocean. $50 zeros, euro zero, well within my means. The deal closed in 2 weeks. I signed the papers, transferred the money, and finally owned a house that was solely mine. I furnished it simply, freshly, without history or pain. A cozy bed, a small sofa, a table for meals facing the ocean, white curtains to let the light in. Everything was mine, everything new, everything clean. My days settled into rhythm. I woke early, brewed coffee, and watched the sun rise over the sea. I walked on the beach, collected shells, dipped my feet in the cold water. I read the books I had longed to read, wrote in my diary, cooked for myself, and nurtured the life I had chosen. Gloria's group became my second family. I met Eva Carter, Ronald Davis, and others, each with their own story of escape, each seeking peace, dignity, and a second chance. We laughed, knitted, drank tea, and shared life's lessons without judgment, only understanding. Weeks turned into months. I called Ellie every week, sharing my ocean views, my friends, my new home. She never mentioned Tanisha or Malik, and I never asked. That chapter was closed. 6 months later, Ellie told me something. My children had been looking for her, asking about me, wanting to know if I was safe. I thanked her and told her I wasn't ready to speak to them, maybe never would be. Occasionally I thought of them, not much but sometimes, but it was no longer my responsibility. I had given them 50 years, the remaining years were mine. I turned 70, one in Coastal Haven. Friends gathered for a small party, candles and home-made cake. They hugged me, told me they loved me, and I believed them because it was real, unconditional love. Gloria gifted me a painting of the ocean, my ocean, to hang across from where I sit every day as a reminder of my courage, my choice, and my freedom. One evening, sitting on my deck as the sun painted the sky in pinks and oranges, I held a cup of tea and looked at the waves. I thought of the old Vivian, the woman who rose at 5 to serve others, who cried alone, who settled for scraps of affection. That woman remained behind in the city, in the house, in the life I had left. The new Vivian was here now, a woman who had chosen herself, taken control, and dared to start over when everyone said it was too late. I opened my diary to a blank page and wrote the words I had saved for decades. My name is no longer theirs. I am no longer just Tanisha and Malik's mother. I am no longer just Marcus's widow. I am no longer the woman who gives until she has nothing left. I am Vivian, simply Vivian, a 71-year old woman who lives by the ocean, who has true friends, who wakes happy, sleeps peacefully, who knows freedom and finally loves herself. My story with them is over. My story with me is just beginning. I closed the diary and watched the waves. They rose and fell like life itself, endings that are beginnings, goodbyes that are welcomes. Stars began to appear in the sky. I sat in the salty air, complete for the first time in 71 years, not because anyone else had completed me, but because I had found myself. I rose, went inside my house, and closed the door behind me. Tomorrow would be another beautiful day, another day of this new life, another day of simply being Vivian, and that was more than enough.